Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Tina Angeli, and she's had two near-death experiences. And how are you doing?
Hi. Hi, Peggy. Thank you.
Have you shared your story very much?
Quite a bit, I think. At first, I was kind of shy about it. I it was as you know, when you have a near-death experience, it's not always easy to explain the energy in words. So it took me a while to process all that. But the more I talked about it, the more I became comfortable in sharing it.
Okay. So would you like to just start out, just start wherever you like and take as long as you like? Um,
Okay, I will begin. Well, first of all, when I was 2 years old, I had what I learned later that it was called life transforming experience. I guess IANS calls it that. I didn't
Okay.
die, but my life definitely transformed from that day on. And then in my 20s, I drowned. I drowned at a lake, and it was quite interesting because as I lost, because I never learned to swim, but I was looking after my two children, and I tripped on something, and I couldn't get out. The harder I tried to go up, the deeper I would go, and I was so painful. I was swallowing water. And then suddenly I heard this click, like somebody was snapping a finger, and no more pain. It was like zero pain. It was just wonderful feeling. And I started to see something that I would call like a slideshow. And it was happening on top of my head. And I don't know how I was able to see it, but I was seeing all the different pictures, which they didn't make sense to me. And then when I would feel confused, I would ask, well, what is that? All of a sudden, again, there was a snap, and it became very clear to me. Some of them were past lives with my husband at the time, and some of them were future events in my life, which was very interesting because I knew that it was a very difficult marriage, but I learned in that near death experience that it was going to get even worse as that time proceeded. He was very abusive, and it felt like while all this was happening, it felt like I was being given this incredible energy of strength for me to be able to deal with what was coming up, through my next stage of my life. And then my friend that we were with friends of ours, when she realized that I was struggling, she pulled me out of the water. And it was very, very hurtful. My chest hurt terribly, and I was, water was coming out of my body, and it was very painful. And then throughout the time, it felt like I was being prepared for something. It didn't happen right away, but it took quite a while for me to finally have the courage to get out of that marriage, as I saw, as predicted in this life review. That's what it was called, this life review, that what I saw in there was actually beginning to happen, where he was becoming even more abusive. And I didn't want my two daughters to think that that was the way a man was supposed to treat a woman. Okay, so I finally got the strength to get out of it, and it was very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, I have more details of this event in my book. I wrote a book which is called We Are Angels. And then in 2020, 2012, actually it was January 5th of 2012, I died at a car crash. It was the most amazing thing because I got hit by an SUV. My car was very small, and as when I got hit, the car started spinning around, and then suddenly I felt like something was coming out of me. It was like a suction, and it was my soul was leaving my body, and I suddenly found myself in this, what I call it, a space, and the walls of the space were all surrounded by this most amazing and loving white light. In the middle of this space was this very ornate table, and on the other side of this table were 9 entities, and it was like I knew instinctively that these entities were very loving, but the one in the middle was the one that somehow made the decisions. I knew this. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And the others were there just to kind of give me loving energy. It was the most incredible love that I was feeling from them. It was very non-judgmental and just very difficult to even explain the kind of love that I felt then. And so for some reason, I must have seen what was to happen still in my life, because I suddenly became very emotional and said, no, I'm not ready to go yet. I am not done on the earth. I have so many other things to do yet. And I suddenly heard or felt or sensed, okay, so I found myself back into my body, and I saw the same people around the car that I saw from above, and I was able to actually sense that they were thinking. And so I found in the car, and that's when I started to feel there was a numbness, but there was also hurt. My body was hurting, and then somebody must have called the police, and the ambulance came and all that. But it was quite interesting, because when I went to the hospital, they did the tests and everything, and there were no broken bones, which was a miracle to me. I mean, it was definitely, I call that chapter in my book the miracle car crash, because there's no way my car got my car was total, but I only had black and blue marks in my body, which lasted quite a while. And it was interesting because as I was healing, I kept saying, who were those 9 entities? And they were wearing capes. And it felt to me that the reason they were wearing these capes, these brown capes, was so I would know that there were 9 of them rather than just this big blob of white light. I knew that instinctively. But I didn't know who they were. And I kept saying, who were they? Who were they? So then I wanted to learn more, because just a few weeks from, actually was it June or July, a few months from January, I was to speak at the, in Virginia Beach at the Advocacy Center. And so I wanted to learn more. So I went and had a session with someone that took me back to that time frame, and I was able to get even more information as far as what they said, all the details of what they said, that I needed to just trust the process, that what that came through me was not from me, but I was just an instrument, which was emphasized by another situation that had happened to me many years prior. And so,
was that regression therapy?
Yes, it was. It was a special kind of regression that this lady in in the Springfield, Massachusetts area did. So I learned of her and I went to her. It was very interesting. It was like going back to the same situation again. It was a very powerful thing. So I was glad I was able to do that. So in the meantime, because it took me 10 years to do this book. In the meantime, I was trying to write this book, and I knew that the question would come up as far as who were those 9 entities? Who were they? Never heard from them until like a few months before the book was ready to be published. And first of all, they came in and this was a few months earlier. They came in and told me, they're very gentle. I was home alone, but I knew that it was them, and they came in and all they said to me was, the book is going to be very, very helpful to people that are contemplating suicide. And very gently they left. And I said, oh my God. And at that time, I was having a challenge even writing. Nothing was coming out of me until my then ex-husband passed away. And then it was like I could not stop writing. I was like a machine. The book was kind of finished. 3/4 of it was done after that happened. And so just before I did self-publishing of the book, I had another visit from these 9 entities, and they told me that they were the lords of karma. And that's all they said, the lords of karma. So I did a little research about the lords of karma, and I learned what their function is as far as helping those of us who are helping others for the earth changes and all that. Do you have questions?
Go ahead.
Well, so basically, it's been quite a ride. I mean, I'm very involved with the group in Connecticut, which is the original group where IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Study, began, the birthplace of that at UConn Health Center. And so I book and vet the speakers there, because to me, it's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, because I want to be able for people to have a place where they can share their stories, unlike I wasn't able to years early when I was going through my other things. Yeah, so it's been quite interesting. I get feedback from people about the book and about other things that I've shared with them, and the fact that I talk with people that have had near-death experiences as you have. It's so different. We are different, right? When we come back, we don't come back the same people like we left, right? So
Right.
yeah, it's very difficult to even explain to people how different we are. And I get frustrated sometimes that when I speak with somebody and the people say one thing, but I know I can read them, and I know that that's not what they're saying is not what they're really feeling or thinking. And it gives me a chance to practice patience.
I call patience that P word because I'm not good with it at all.
I know.
My husband will get aggravated. He'll say that P word. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
patience.
Yeah, and it's difficult at times, because it's like, why can't people just say what they mean instead of saying what they think that people want to hear? It's just almost like a waste of time. But that's my
Are
way.
you talking about speakers, NDE speakers? Or?
No, people in general.
Okay.
NDE speakers, I love communicating with them, because we have a lot in common. And of course, as you know, one of the themes of people that have died and come back is that one of them is that we're no longer afraid of death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you talk about this much before, when right after it happened, right after NDEs?
It was very difficult for me to even choose the words because it was still in an energetic format. And so I had to kind of, the re-entering was it was challenging. So you get kind of used to it. Everything was emphasized, like if a person spoke normal kind of voice, I thought of it as being that person it was too loud for me. Even the lights were too bright for me. Normal lights that were okay prior to my near-death experience. So everything was emphasized. My dreams were so different. Everything was so much more clear. And one of my frustrations, especially then, was sitting with family or friends, and they talk about stuff that it means nothing.
Right.
It's like there's no depth to that. And again, practicing patience, because I have to kind of put myself in their shoes, even though they're not able to put themselves in my shoes because they haven't been there. But so it's been quite a challenge, but it's also rewarding. And someone said to me a while back, says, "Tina, I'm so sorry that this happened to you." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not sorry. I feel like I've gained a lot from this experience."
Yeah, you didn't die from your drowning. I mean, you didn't stay dead, and you didn't stay dead from a car crash, and you had just bruises. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we are lucky when we come through stuff like that, and a lot of people don't come through so well.
And the clarity that once you meet up with someone and they tell their story, and that a lot of people, they love to consider themselves victims so they can have people feel sorry for them. And it's like, and as they say that, I see what their life plan is, and I don't always share everything with them, but sometimes I do get these hits where I know I need to share something with the people, like it's a spontaneous psychic messages. So I
Do you
become,
know why you were able to write about your experiences so much better after your ex died?
I feel that the whatever energy was still there, resentment or whatever for him, because he felt like how dare I have the guts to divorce him. And he asked me once, says, "Why did you?" And I said, "Well, maybe because I had the short end of the deal." And of course, that got him even more mad. But I just,
You can't win in those situations.
it's strange because I believe in the fact that we all create our own contracts before we come on the earth, and I know that everything is kind of pre-planned. I even believe, through the years, I've come to believe that even these near-death experiences are planned. I truly believe that.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
planned for the purpose of experiencing them. I don't believe in anything. We're not victims, and nothing happens by accident. That's my belief. I don't know how others
Yeah.
feel about it, but anyways.
Seems that way, don't it?
Mm. Yeah, so does that
Like
bring
we
up
could,
any questions?
yeah, yeah, it just seems like we could go through something just so we could help somebody else when they're going through it.
Yeah. I used to be the shyest person out there, because when I came to this country when I was 14 years old, and as I started to learn the language, I was very subconscious about my accent, and I always say, oh God, I can't speak. And I used to get all tongue tied if I had to speak in front of more than 2 or 3 people at a time. It was extreme, where I get heart palpitations and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially after my second near-death experience, it's like, try to stop me from talking.
Right.
They can't stop. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how compelled we are when we start telling, like we're so shy or backward. But when we start, it's like riding a bike. It's like you just keep going.
Yeah. And because
Once you know how.
I've been interviewed before multiple times, and as I look back and I see that, yeah, it's about practice, right? The more you practice, the better you are at communicating what your feelings, what you experience, because you can only come as close as possible to expressing that, so people can understand what's going on. And there are a lot of people who are very, very curious about what happened to us. They actually kiddingly, they call themselves the NDE wannabe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they just curious about, and that's all I can say. But interestingly enough, though, being a part of the group in Connecticut, I've learned through the years that sometimes people used to come to these groups with the idea, oh, I'm just curious. So as far as what happens to people that, have near-death experience. And then one of the speakers will say something that triggers something in them and say, oh, I've had one of those. I didn't know that it was called that. See, so there's always a reason why people get drawn to certain
Yeah.
meetings.
And
Yeah.
I think it's funny too how sometimes we feel drawn to suddenly start talking about it to somebody out of the blue. They're like, oh, like I used to work with my husband on the pipeline, and a couple times something was clearly pushing me, talk about it, talk about it. I was like, talk about this to these guys. And there'd be an open opportunity that day, and I would open up, and sure enough, somebody's like, one guy was like, oh, I didn't know it was called that. I didn't know it was a thing. I just
Yeah.
knew this strange thing happened. And the other guy, he knew what it was called, and he just started going on and on and on talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he had talked about it before, but he just like, he just opened up and was just so excited and hyper. And it's like, wow, who'd have thought? There's only a small crew of us that did have two NTers on the job.
Yeah, it's important to be aware that if, let's say, somebody asks me to be interviewed by them, and I know that there's a reason for that, but someone that needs to hear me say whatever it is that comes out of my mouth, because they wouldn't have known any other way. So I'm really glad that this is out there now. Many years ago, there wasn't, and I know a lot of people personally that ended up in the psychiatrist's office because they couldn't explain. They thought they were going crazy. They didn't have a support system, and they couldn't talk about it with just anybody, and the family just wanted to change the subject. It's tough.
Yeah, yeah, because we grew up hearing people that see ghosts, people that hear voices, all that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't go hang around people like that. You don't talk like that unless you want to be some weirdo.
Yeah. But what's interesting about our group, which we're very, very proud that there are three people within our group. One is a near-death experiencer, but the other two just have this incredible need to partake in it and help. And they have created, the three of them have created the 12 steps for NDEs, and now it's being made into a book. They're going to be speaking at the conference in this year at the IANS conference, and it's wonderful that finally there's actually a true support group where it's not just about having speakers to share, but also about having a support group. And when we do the meetings on a support group, the 12 steps, we don't record those meetings, so people are more open to share whatever is on their mind, knowing that it's not going to be shared with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got started doing videos. Before I had a YouTube channel, me and Sharon Milliman would sit and talk on the phone all the time about our experiences. And then I started thinking, people might be interested to hear these conversations. So it was just one of those, it wasn't YouTube, it was one of those little, I forget what it's called, things you could load up and put stuff on, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we figured out a little bit. We did that for a while, and then COVID come and everybody's supposed to stay home and all that, but it's like, these people need to hear these conversations, because we were just getting into so much depth.
And I remember watching Dr. Oz when you were on. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, wow, she's really good at talking. I wish I could get like that. It was interesting. So did you ever have a challenge with speaking, or this wasn't one of them? Yeah.
Well, the first time I spoke, was Lee Whitting. It was radio. I was so excited. When Lee called me, you might as well said that Oprah was on the phone. I mean, I was that excited when Lee Whitting called and asked me to be on NDE radio. And so then I was to be on an NDE panel 2017, I think. And my husband and I was working on the pipeline. He was a steward. They basically had to shut the whole big job down so we could fly from Ohio to Colorado. And we lost a ton of money, for us both being off. So I was indie panel, and I was so shy that I couldn't tell my stories, big audience. When they handed me the microphone, because I decided that morning I didn't know what I was going to do. So I decided that morning I was going to read my poems that I wrote about my NDE that's in the back of my book. And so that's what I did. And then later I was supposed to speak at Ian's group. The lady said, well, you're not going to read your poems, are you? But the people loved them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they was all lined up to talk to me afterwards and stuff. And one guy that was there, Jacob Cooper, we had met there, become friends.
Oh, yeah.
And he saw me later and he said, everybody keeps saying, oh, you were with Pegi, you were with Pegi. Like he wanted to recognize him. And he's like, you were with Pegi. He said, everybody's looking for you.
Yeah, I love Jake. Yeah.
So that was fun. But yeah, I was shy. I almost bolted when they gave me the microphone. I was so nervous. I was going to run through the aisle and hide in the bathroom and tell my husband to take me home. I was so scared. And so, but the more you do something, and then the first time I talked to an Ian's group was Columbus, Ohio, a couple hours from my home. I was hooked. I feel like I was levitating when I was telling my NDE.
Yeah, it's not easy. I remember I was on a panel, and I think it was 2018. As a matter of fact, it's the same place where they're going to have it this year near Washington. And I put in, the offer to speak, and they put me on a panel. And when it was my turn to speak, it was toward the end of the conference. I sobbed like a 2-year-old. I couldn't talk. I started crying.
Now you're going to speak this year at the conference on Indie panel?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
No, some people from our group are going. They've been accepted.
Okay, because I've been hearing people say they're not allowed to talk about their NDE before the conference if they're going to be in the conference. Like, oh, I haven't heard that before.
Oh.
Like not be on podcasts and stuff.
Yes, I mean it's in the book. So, but no, I never heard that one. But no, this year I'm not. I didn't sign up for anything. But yeah, there's about at least 3 or 4 of our members from the Connecticut chapter that are going.
Yeah, I was on that one year, I say the Indie panel, Colorado. I skipped a year because a lot of people on Facebook were saying, well, how come you got picked? I didn't get picked. I've been trying to get on for years. So I thought, well, I won't apply the next year, give somebody else a chance. And so I applied the year after and they accepted me, but then I backed out. They put me on a panel that had to do with abuse and stuff, and I didn't want to be questioned about the abuse. I want to talk about my NDEs.
That's right. Yeah, they
So,
choose the topics, I guess. I don't know. I don't know who makes these decisions, honestly. But it's quite interesting. So our group right now is it's not in person. It's not at the Yukon Health Center. That's where it started. Now we're just online, at least for now. And it's always the second Monday of every month. And we have a website that anybody can join our groups or watch the videos or the previous speakers. And it's ndect.org.
okay.
Yeah, ndect.org.
What's the CT for?
Connecticut.
That's what I thought. I wasn't positive.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
Well, I really can't. Probably will think about it after we quit, but I can't think of anything right at this moment. But I want to maybe end with this one phrase that was told to me more than once while I was up there with those 9 entities. And it always seems to settle people down when I say it. They kept saying to me, enjoy every breath you take. It's such powerful short phrase, but it seems to work. I enjoy every breath I take. That's what calms me down sometimes when the Italian in me kicks in.
Is that where you're from, Italy?
Yes. Yeah, I was born there. Yeah.
My son's wife is they're Italian, and so my granddaughters, they have the nose, they have the features.
Yeah.
And as the one's just going to go to senior year, and I've noticed their nose is like suddenly there it is.
You mean the Roman nose? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, they're beautiful though. They're intelligent.
Grandchildren's are the gift to all of us. I have 4 granddaughters. They're so different from each other, but all wonderful. Yeah.
I saw my son last night and my granddaughter come in, the one's getting ready to go to senior year. She's like, start running, plodding to me. It's like, this is nice. They live like 3 hours away, so we don't get to see them as often as we'd like.
So
all
may
right.
I ask you a question? Of all the people that you are interviewing, do you see some kind of a theme as far as how they're handling, how they're integrating into life back here again?
How they're integrating life.
Yeah.
Well, there's the shock factor. There's trying to understand it. There's the process. Some people seem to go through it real quick, and I think it's easier now with the internet, and they know, oh, other people have had it. But most of us, we had these when nobody heard of it. So we just kind of repressed it. And then when it comes out, we go through all these stages, it seems like.
Yeah.
Of
It seems like
comprehending.
those of us that have had these experiences, there is a need to talk about it. And so it's important to be part of a support group for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because the group, on the Facebook groups, I never did well in those. It's like people want to argue,
Yeah.
or they want to put NDEs on a pedestal, and they'll ask these questions. Like they'll even post pictures of their loved ones as passed on. What do you see here? And people are actually answering. I'm like, oh my God.
I haven't had that kind of experience, but I actually know some people that they have their own opinion of what they want to hear. So if you don't give them what they think they want to hear, they argue with you. That's for sure. I've had those experiences.
Yeah. So I even got rid of my Facebook. I was a big Facebook user. I had 5,000 friends at one point, and then I deleted a whole bunch, and then it ended back up over 4,000 again. And I finally realized a couple months ago, I don't have time for this. I got other
So-
things to do than argue politics, religion, or anything. So I'm tired.
So this, what you're doing, is it a YouTube channel, or I don't?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a YouTube channel.
Very good. So when you post this, will I know?
Yes, as soon as it is available, as soon as it's published on YouTube, I'll send it to you. Usually that is within 24 hours. But I did 4 yesterday and then we went out of town, so I got to do those yet. And then I did a guy before you. So it'll be sometime this weekend. But at the
No
moment
problem at all.
I'll
Thank
email
you.
it to you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time, and thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You take care now.
Bye-bye.